Welcome to the AI Corner. I'm your host, Mike Bailey, here to spotlight the people shaping New Zealand's AI future. In today's episode, we're speaking with Tane Van der Boon. Tane is the founder and CEO of Inviol, a fast-growing Kiwi startup using AI and computer vision to tackle complacency and improve safety in high-risk workplaces. With a background spanning marine conservation to startup innovation, Tane's been on a mission to help machines see danger before it strikes. Welcome to the pod, Tane.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
Awesome. Well, let's get started. What pulled you into AI in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story. It actually started back at Vulcan Steel. So I led the IT team there for a long time, and we did a hackathon essentially with Datacom at the time. So we presented this idea. This is a long time ago now, must be 7 years ago, when computer vision was just starting to come out of the woodwork. We're sort of talking traditional deep learning and CNNs when they just first started coming out, and this idea of computer vision had evolved. And one of the directors, my boss at the time, James Wells, who's now on our board, had the idea of detecting PPE on the back of the truck, right? People wearing high-vis essentially was sort of where we started when they were on the back of the trucks, because I suppose from a health and safety perspective, we didn't know or understand what was going on when these trucks were off-site. So we pitched this to Datacom for their hackathon, so for someone to potentially pick up, and it ended up being me and one young guy who was really excited about the idea as well. He essentially did all the work. I just helped him capture some data, but he essentially trained a basic object detection model, which was like YOLO V1 at the time, to be able to detect high-vis on people, which I thought was pretty amazing. So from there, I got really excited about this idea that we could train models to teach computers to see, essentially. After that, I was doing my master's intensive part-time at University of Auckland. I was having a beer with one of the other students, and part of his program, he was looking to commercialize these really large drones. And he had met somebody else at the university, Rochelle Constantine. This is how Maui 63s formed, the charitable organization that you mentioned in regards to marine mammals. So he'd met her. She said, "Why don't you try and fly to find these endangered Maui dolphins?" I'd had a couple of beers, so I promised Willie I'd develop a computer vision model to find dolphins. Awesome. And so, I mean, I like to keep to my promises. So I spent probably 6 months of weekends and evenings on top of a high demanding job and my master's projects learning how these computer vision models worked. We gathered a bunch of data from drones, I suppose proved at a high level we could detect dolphins, captured data, trained models. And that's what that turned into Maui 63, which is now a not-for-profit that uses computer vision and other techniques to capture data of endangered marine animals. We started with drones. We're starting to move into airplanes as well. And I think just from there, like the opportunity to use technology to create tools that actually give us as a society like positive things that we can change is really my link to AI, technology, computer vision, and that's sort of where it all started.
That's awesome. You've certainly got a mission behind a lot of what you're doing, which is really cool to see. And was computer vision even a phrase back then? Like, how new was this, especially in this country?
I mean, I don't even know. Like, I wasn't part of the ecosystem. I don't think many people were talking about it. Definitely, I still think what we're doing at Maui 63 is pretty world leading. A lot of research institutes and universities still reach out to us. We share, we've open sourced everything that we're doing as well. We make that available to researchers. I'm in the process of open sourcing our app and data sets too. Yeah, I don't think it was something that was regularly talked about. The practice was just starting to evolve, and not too many people were actually putting these types of things into production. Yeah, we got essentially a model running at about 32 frames a second at 1080p on a Jetson Xavier AGX, which is the first NVIDIA Edge compute unit, and we put that in a drone. We worked with a Chinese drone manufacturer to make that run in real time and pass those results back to our ground control station. We were using open source frameworks from other universities around the world, one specifically TKDNN, a backbone, and it was just super exciting to be doing. Like, nobody else was doing that, right? Like, I was posting in these GitHub repositories. We can still see this history of this going on. Like, hey, can you help? And it was, I suppose, another real exciting part about this industry as a whole is, the community coming together to support each other. So internationally, it was starting to take place, but I don't think many people were doing it or talking about it in New Zealand at this stage.
That's wicked. And I suppose when you moved into Inviol, what was the aha moment that got you started with that business, and what was the problem you were trying to solve? Was that connected to the hackathon you were running with the idea from Datacom?
I think Maui 63 has never been something I wanted to make money from, so I don't. Like, I don't get paid for that work. Our board doesn't get paid. We're really trying to create a charitable organization that just does good stuff, and the money that we get from donations or whatever goes into the actual work. We might pay some engineers or things like that, or for flights and for surveys and for pilots, but we never wanted to take or make anything out of it. So I suppose I wanted an opportunity to also commercialize this technology that was meaningful. And obviously it had initiated from this idea at Vulcan. So yeah, approached Vulcan as well when we were formulating this, build a prototype, and then they came on board as one of our initial investors as well, which was pretty cool.
Do you want to tell the audience a bit about Inviol and what you offer?
Yeah, so Inviol, so we started with computer vision, still probably a core piece of what we do, but really what we try to do is identify unsafe behavior in the workplace. So if you think about someone carrying steel over someone's head, or those trucks, I started with an example, not wearing appropriate PPE, or jumping off the side, or unloading forklifts and trucks too close to people. So we use cameras to detect this type of behavior creeping into the workplace. But what we're doing as well is transforming those insights into something that businesses can use. So how do you transform your safety culture on site? So one thing is to watch a camera and detect things going on. It might be positive or it might be negative behavior, but how do we see these things? And I suppose the problem in a nutshell is if you think about people putting themselves in these dangerous situations, they often understand what's safe and what's unsafe. But over time, we get used to things not going wrong, things not breaking. And so we start to put ourselves in more and more harm's way without actually really realizing it, because we're used to that crane not failing or that forklift not, coming and hitting me, right? But so then we're taking more and more risk, but we're not understanding we're not thinking about, I suppose, at the time, if someone makes a mistake here, I could be seriously injured, die, worst case. These things do happen. So I suppose our purpose is to detect that early so that businesses can be proactive about that behavior starting to creep in. Because if you talk to people about it essentially on a regular basis, and we have a platform to help you manage that, you can reduce that risk, essentially remove it from your business for the most part, and drive a real healthy and positive safety culture across the organization.
That's awesome. And before we dive into some more of the MVL use cases, you mentioned Vulcan, and it sounds like a pretty smart way to just build on side a business that has a real problem. And can you tell us about how that relationship spawned? Because there's probably a lot of startups out there who are looking to find their first customer or partner or JV to really get some scale. And I think it's a really important strategy for organizations to think about.
Yeah, totally. So a piece of advice probably is I look for these businesses who are quite innovative. Vulcan's pretty awesome. I mean, lucky I worked there for a long time, right? They built software in-house. There's not many steel companies in the world that build their own bespoke ERP. So I think it's looking for those unique outliers that want to be innovative. I mean, really lucky to be able to work with them. They came in as an investor because they wanted to see this technology to fruition within their own fleet and get value from that perspective. But also they gave us access to their facilities for R&D. So I think having access to real truck, real people, a real environment to improve this add a lot of value to the product in the early phases.
Is this a problem that they knew that they had quite in detail, or is this a problem that you brought to them to, I guess, show them where there was, I guess, an expensive and really risky problem for them to solve?
I think Vulcan was really aware that health and safety risk and operational risk was a part of their business, like every steel distribution company did. So I think the problem existed, and it always did, and it was something that they were trying to manage. So what we were doing is really just helping bring that to life, make that better, make it clearer, make it more visible, more transparent, and I suppose easier to get visibility of and manage and then improve. But their goal was creating a better safety culture on site, but we just helped provide tooling to get them there faster.
And what about that relationship from, we're going to build this alongside you and make it work for your business, but we also want the ability to commercialize outside of the relationship too? How did that process go?
Yeah, so we're really lucky. That is a hard place to balance, but from a safety perspective, everyone's actually pretty positive to share. So, I mean, a little bit of a luck in the segment and the market that we're playing in. People don't necessarily want to hold safety innovation close to their chest because everyone wants everyone to get home at the end of the day. That is a core focus of every business with working machinery right these days in the modern developed countries at the very least. So we talk about New Zealand, everybody wants that. So you're quite happy to share these learnings and go ahead and commercialize. And I think for Vulcan, super clever approach for them too, right? Other people are going to help build us a customer base, fund this technology, improve it. Everybody's going to benefit from it at the same time, both as an investor and as a customer.
So, and do you find when you're speaking with potential new customers that you're having to convince them of your solution, or do they come looking for your solution more often than not?
For us, I suppose no one's looking too much because they don't know it exists. AI is quite new, right? So even computer vision, we might be 4 years old. I might have been doing this for 7 or 8 years. But if you think about people in industry who have their heads down, who are worried about getting something delivered to their customer on time, they're not really looking outside of that space. And sometimes they hear and see about tools, but a lot of the time we're actually showing them things they'd never seen before or thought about before. But what we make sure is that our product does align with those values and those key outcomes that they're trying to achieve. It's quite unique about what we're doing. So, there's the AI piece, but then what's the product around that to support it, to obviously get buy-in, but also to add a lot of, the only way that we want to get buy-in is by adding value to them as a business and as a customer.
And I suppose, do you even need to talk about the technology in detail with these customers? Because to your point, AI isn't on the radar of a good percentage of the population. So why would they care? As you say, they just want the outcome.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that is what we're typically talking about. Everyone likes something cool to look at though. So it helps, right? It's quite easy to be like, hey, do you want to see some AI that's going to help change your safety culture on site? Like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting and exciting. So yeah, I think it gives us an opportunity. It is something cool to talk about. We've been getting, some pretty amazing customer referrals as well. So the nice thing again, like to the point of safety is they share. Like just yesterday, I was at a Fletcher's conference, which had Coca-Cola there. It was a customer. Obviously Fletcher's is a customer, and a whole bunch of our customers and maybe new customers. And we were presenting there a customer case study story, right, around direct logistics and their journey, and around the technology, and around like the amazing changes that team achieved. And that's quite cool. That forum exists in market. Like you wouldn't be sharing the same thing about a sales product or a marketing tool because people try and hold those things close to their chest. But from a safety perspective, they visit, right? Competitors visit each other, understand what they're doing from a safety perspective and bring those learnings across because everyone wants, obviously, get everyone home at the end of the day.
Fascinating. It is very kind of unique, as you say. Building AI into physical spaces can be pretty complex, I would imagine. What's been the hardest part of making it practical and reliable for people to touch and feel, I suppose?
Yeah, just what you said, right? Like productionizing a tool that generalizes into different environments is probably the hardest thing, especially from an AI perspective, especially from a computer vision perspective, building models that generalize, right? So we might have this model that works amazingly for Vulcan Steel, but then you're going to go and put it in placemakers, for example, and their trucks. It's different materials, a different environment. So how do you develop not just models, but also software and generalizes really well? And so you just have to think about what's going to be configurable, what's not going to be configurable, what's going to learn, what's not going to learn, how am I going to pull these pieces together? How's it going to run real time? How's it not going to get too hot? One of our biggest challenges on the early days was putting devices in trucks. Like we put an edge AI device in a truck, right? Like one thing is I put one in a drone, but what about a truck that's really hot and is driving around Victoria, it's 50-degree heat all day, right? Like we had devices melting and all sorts of stuff going on. And you're running a GPU, and we know those aren't that efficient, and they're all really hot. So I think just understanding all those challenges, like we had so many unexpected hardware challenges, I'd say that was probably the key thing. Our customers wanting everything to be real time. We had a real push towards the edge. I'm a strong believer that that's where our compute is going to live, or a lot of our compute will live going forward, especially from an AI and a model execution perspective. If you want to get that user experience, that real time, like I want to know about something now, right? I want something to run live on my device. I want to be able to interface with it. So where does that compute most probably going to have to live on the device? So we've always taken that mindset and taken hardware to market along with our solution offering as well, which has been quite unique.
So how does that work in terms of if I'm the safety compliance officer at an organization, how often are you monitoring the behavior of individuals within a warehouse or a logistics situation? Like, is it live all the time and it's pointing out behavior and it's building a dashboard of that? Or is it taking snapshots for a sample size?
24/7 real time.
Yeah.
So yeah, all the time. It's not necessarily about putting it everywhere, right? You're picking some key high risk locations. We don't have to monitor every camera anywhere. This isn't about performance monitoring. It's about understanding risk and getting everyone home at the end of the day. I think that's really clear. We've got a bunch of privacy functions built in as well. Like people might never leave the site unblurred, for example, things like that. But so it runs in 24/7. Obviously, that can create a whole lot of noise. So we have a whole lot of, I suppose, features in our products to make sure that we're getting the right data to the right people. To your point, that can be pretty noisy and unfathomable for somebody to try and manage if we don't do that really well.
And I know you can't put a price on safety, but it sounds expensive, right? Running a lot of, I guess, computer vision and running a lot of calls back to models to train the model or to understand what's happening with that. Is that a fair comment?
No, I think it's pretty cheap. So, I
Okay.
mean, I'm happy to put some high level numbers, like a small site running computer vision real time 24/7, maybe it's 500 to $1,000 a month.
Wow.
End to end, everything that you need. That's including your hardware, your software licensing, the whole lot. So we really built this platform to be affordable. We have small customers, we have big customers, and we've built our pricing models as well as our software that it can scale to all different types of sizes of customers. Because at the end of the day, it is for that site specifically. A big company might just have multiple sites, but we've thought about how we've developed it so it can really scale and be easily deployable into a small business with a single site.
That's epic. Super cost effective. And you keep mentioning models. Like, are you using some of the foundational models that are out there? Have you built your own models from scratch? How does that all work behind the scenes?
Yeah, so most of our models, like our primary models, are bespoke or somewhat bespoke based off open source, modified, obviously all our own data sets. So that side's pretty bespoke. We've been doing that for a long time. And then, obviously starting to use some of these general models more in our development workflows, starting to integrate them a little bit into our features as well. But I think long term, there'll be some fine tuning. But I do think those core models are going to support products, be the primary support for products, at least in the midterm. We would obviously like to move into some more bespoke things over time, but if that's just a product that's provided that we can retrain, or that's something we bring in-house and really get into that detail, is yet to be seen. At the moment, these foundational models are an awesome way to put products in market and to learn, and then we'll fine tune and figure out where we sit over time. But yeah, quite a big shift from full bespoke to using APIs, and obviously, but that's cloud rather than edge. So where do we live and what are we going to do and what type of model is going to be responsible for what job going forward is always something that we're thinking about as we move into the future.
Wicked. And I suppose for other Kiwi founders that might be thinking about how to apply AI into legacy type industries, do you have any kind of guidance on where there might be some other low hanging fruit? Like, you found a very, I guess, niche problem and applied a new technology to a situation that couldn't be solved before in some way. Are there other areas that you have in mind where there's some low hanging fruit there?
I mean, the biggest one that I would love to be working on that I'm not is education. And I know lots of people are, so I'm not sure it's necessarily the low-hanging fruit. There's obviously some cool startups in New Zealand looking at that already, but that was where I think that, the evolution of these LLMs and the ability to teach people and to learn and to customize learning that's one of the coolest opportunities that they've created. Yeah. So that's where I would be focusing my efforts if I wasn't so busy with safety.
I bet. Is that education and computer vision specifically or more general?
I know, so more the LLM space, right? Like the ability to tailor learning to individuals, to kids, or to adults, right? I think that's such an awesome opportunity because everybody learns so differently. But obviously, the other side for me is marine animals conservation. That space, there's so much opportunity there. It is hard to get funding for that type of opportunity, I would know. But at the same time, there's so many cool opportunities to help researchers. I think we were sort of touching on that university story before, and yeah, even from an entrepreneurial space, you don't necessarily have to be an engineer, right? But there's cool engineers and students experimenting with cool technologies, building these cool products. They might need a hand commercializing, right? Or helping build and transform. So I think there's, a whole world of opportunity at the universities and with students doing really cool things that there's definitely an opportunity to take advantage of and work with and help build things. Just like how Maui 63 came from a couple of beers and an idea and turned into quite a cool little charitable trust that I think does some good for the world.
Oh, it's great to see. And how ready do you think New Zealand is for AI? Do you think we have all the right ingredients to be successful as a country?
I think we have most of the same ingredients or opportunities that other developed nations have. We have good internet connectivity. We can get compute if we need it, albeit in the cloud that can be expensive. But I don't think that necessarily has to be local. We're not building hardware and that type of thing, but we can buy it. We currently don't have any trade restrictions with China or Taiwan, which is fantastic. So I think we're set up relatively well. Potentially there's opportunities to integrate it more and more into our education systems, but, we have some interns, and I hear that is starting to happen in their courses as well, which is really cool. So I think, universities adopting the new world's going to be really important, right? Like teaching, how do we actually train people to go and do jobs with these tools is, going to be a really important part of education now, right? And forever going forward.
I think the way that you started Inviol is a blueprint that a lot of businesses, be it startup, be it traditional and legacy organizations, should look at to partnership in some way, that whether the government or private funding could support that to set up these JVs and accelerate the innovation layer or labs within these organizations. It's a blueprint we should be thinking about more and more. We don't have the capital that they have over in the States or even in Australia for that matter. So how can we make 1 + 1 = 3? I think using all the capabilities that enterprise has alongside startups is a real winner.
And the capital, right? Like if I think of, won't get into detail, but like the early stages of funding we required wasn't much, right? It was me. I was super passionate at Dream. I could have some technical skills as well. I could build something, right? So that investment or that chance for someone like Vulcan to take was actually pretty small, right? Like from a capital perspective. Obviously they wanted to do some DD and all the rest of it, but they could open up doors, they could introduce us to customers, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity that they created for us. But yeah, I totally agree, right? You could, if more and more businesses would do that, take on these people who are excited about the technology. They could be young, they just have an idea. That's a really awesome opportunity to collaborate, build something that benefits your business and could scale into something that's bigger, right, than these enterprises over time.
Absolutely. And especially because you can access individuals who understand the problems within that industry that might have spent their entire career in that space. And I see this as being potentially a risk, but also a great opportunity for people to learn. There'll be folks who will go and jump into the brokerage industry or the healthcare industry or another industry where they see an opportunity, and good on them for having a crack, but they won't have the experience in that industry to really understand those problems in detail or the connections. And then when someone who sees what they're doing, who has the connections and the knowledge and potentially some additional experience, they might just do a me too and just kind of accelerate or leapfrog that other entrepreneur. I mean, there are benefits and pros and cons to all of those scenarios, but I feel as though those that are coming from within industry and company are going to be best placed to really solve those problems. At the same time, they might be a bit skeuomorphic and a bit jaded because they've grown up in a world without AI, whereas the young entrepreneur who has grown up in a world with only AI will see the world from a very different lens at the same time.
Yeah, so how do we create that ecosystem of companies and even companies with ideas, right? And hungry young people with the skills to that's the cool thing. Like, I don't know how we create that link. I definitely think there's a want in these organizations for innovative young people to join, which actually can be quite hard to attract, right? Like, like I shouldn't use Vulcan Steel, but like, companies like Vulcan, it's a steel distribution company. Like I know that's an awesome business and it was epic to work for and that's quite exciting, but I'm not sure that student coming out of uni with AI skills wants to go and jump on that, right? They might be looking for a startup or something to join. So yeah, there's definitely got to be some space there in New Zealand because we are so small, which is so lucky that you can join these organizations and their ideas through to students. Maybe that Datacom hackathon type scenario is a good idea. But yeah, how do we do more of that?
I agree. Yeah, we need some form of mechanism or incentives to show younger people or people who are enthusiastic that there are opportunities in these perceived boring industries. Even though they might be boring, these businesses have been around for eons and they'll continue to be around for a number of years because what they do is a necessity to make sure we continue kind of evolving as a society.
Yeah, and I actually think that boring is just a complete perception. Like they're not. They're super awesome. They're exciting. They're there and they're that big for a reason, right? Some of them are doing really well. Vulcan being in it, just one example, but there's so many in New Zealand like that. Oh, well, that sounds like a good one for you, Mike.
Well, those enterprises have so much data and knowledge of the regulation, and some of them even have network effects to take on. So there might be something in that we can work towards. What's coming next for Inviol, and what broader trends in AI are you really watching closely?
Well, I won't give away too much of our roadmap, but from a trends perspective, I mean, VLMs, vision language models are super exciting. Obviously, I like that space. We work in that space already, so that's obvious. But even from a robot's perspective, right, like this ability to have models with super broad understanding from a visual perspective, that's super exciting. We can all imagine all sorts of use cases from that, e.g., getting a cup of tea for me while I chat to you here, right? I think that's quite an exciting thing that we'll be seeing in the near future. So that's a big one for me. And then, but like if you talk about real now and with our teams, that ability to accelerate what we're doing and move faster with these tooling. I think when we originally chatted, Mike, we had AI Day in the offices and these types of initiatives to get everybody at all levels of the organization using these tools on a daily basis to accelerate their workflows and sharing those learnings and putting structures in place to make sure that we're making the most of these tools, especially as a startup with limited resource taking on some of our competitors are huge. How do we do that and continue to be effective? I think we can really use these skills and tools, integrate them into all of our workflows and enhance the skills of our teams.
What's been one of the biggest learnings that you've taken away from getting your team to embed AI into how they work every day?
I mean, I think it's convincing them or getting them to show themselves and each other how it can add value. And I actually think that does take time, right? Like you need to spend time thinking about how you're going to solve a problem with a tool. And then you can start to automate that and improve that. But yeah, the biggest thing is thinking about, from my perspective, is like, how do they work? And so if we understand how they work, even at a high level, and some of the AI engineers can share that more deeper knowledge, right? And then if we understand how they work, then we understand how we should be interacting with them to get the best outcome from. None of them solve all of our problems right now, but there's definitely a whole lot of tasks that can be accelerated and helped with them.
I absolutely agree. I feel as though it's a show me, don't tell me type approach, and we found a couple of individuals who are super enthusiastic internally, and as soon as you share what they're doing and encourage other enthusiasts to share what they're doing, it starts to snowball pretty quick. And all of a sudden, everybody, for better or for worse, wants to kind of show off what they're doing in the best of ways, because it is really impressive what the tools can do. And it doesn't have to be anything super complex. It's sometimes the most basic use cases are the most impressive because they end up saving the most time for someone.
Totally. Just writing emails, right, that are time consuming. If you can build a nice workflow around that as a technical support person, for example, that's pretty game changing for your life because you actually enjoy automating and scripting things, not writing emails, right? So, I think there's some real, like you said, simple things add a whole lot of value, make everyone's days a lot better and let them get back to the things that they enjoy.
Absolutely. And I suppose what's one thing that you believed about AI, perhaps maybe when Gen AI started in the past couple of years, or proliferated, I should say, that you've turned out to be, I guess, wrong about?
I think it's definitely moved faster than I expected it to. And I think I was probably wrong on how well some of these models have generalized and the performance of them and how fast that's moving. That's probably where I was most wrong. I didn't think it would go as fast as it has. And it is, which I'm super excited about, right? It's a good thing. I'm happy that I'm wrong about that. So that's probably my biggest learn along the way. I just probably didn't expect it to move as quickly as it has.
Yeah, absolutely. There's plenty going on out there. And I know we've spent about half an hour together and want to be respectful of time. Would you be up for a quick fire round before we finish up?
Yeah, so
Awesome. ChatGPT, Claude, or Gemini?
all three APIs, Gemini, Claude for coding, and ChatGPT for everything else, especially the deep research tool.
Brilliant. I love the breakdown there. What's the most overhyped AI trend right now?
Vibe coding.
Vibe coding.
It's hard to productionize things properly still. You can only vibe code so far. I'm a bit of a vibe coder. I'm not like a dedicated full-time engineer. So
I saw the phrase, there's vibe browsing nowadays, there's vibe shopping, vibe anything. It's a ton of fun, right? The stuff you can spin up. But when it refactors your code back to the ground zero, that's probably the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, and it's so funny when people ask you, oh, well, why do we need engineers? Which is when you can just create these things. I'm like, well, yeah, maybe one day, but we're definitely not there yet. We need some guardrails around the stuff too.
Absolutely. This is probably inherent in something that you talked about earlier, but open source models or closed proprietary?
I love open source, but there's a place for closed proprietary for a period of time to create innovation. I think there's a place for both. I love that there is both, but I think open source will win.
Apart from yourselves, one New Zealand company doing great work that may not be on the radar of most people.
Oh, that's a good one. Authy.
What do they do?
Digital marketing, and then using AI as well.
Excellent. We'll have to look them up. And what's your number one recommendation for people who are just getting started in AI?
Look for ways to, well, one, practically use the tool, like we're sort of talking about, putting those processes and workflows and being regimented around that together. And then two, I think, yeah, looking for real problems to solve and thinking about how you'll actually productionize it and put other things around it, be it a platform or code or a use case, right? I see chats going into all sorts of products and it's like, that's cool for 5 minutes, like, great, but how do we turn that into something else that really helps people? And then I think you'll create value. There's an awesome place for this technology. We just need to find those spots and continuous focus on the best outcome for the user, the customer.
Completely agree. I feel as though we're getting towards a bit of a graveyard of innovation in some ways, which is also good. People are testing and learning, but there are
Yeah.
so many use cases that I'm guilty of it myself with workflows and vibe coding apps that I get to 60, 80% and go, yeah, I don't know how to get this to finished or how I could actually use it moving forward. But I learned a ton of stuff on the way.
Yeah, like if a real easy example, like today, someone had an LLM talking to our dev board, right? Hey, what stuff's in progress? What percentages it's to complete? And it chugged away and spat out an answer. I was like, that's cool, but I could have just opened the board and had a look and it's really clear, right? So I just think that people quite often forget there's a reason we build apps and products that are highly tailored for a specific job and you can visually do things really nicely. And we don't want to talk about everything when I can just look or click one thing and that thing's done for me. So yeah, just building products. It's just balancing that. And there's definitely time and place for chat. I love it. It's just how do we do other cool things with these models in these applications that we're building for people?
Totally agree. What is the problem you're looking to solve? I think a great way is building a product and you start to see other areas of your workflow where you go, oh, I could actually solve this problem, but maybe what I built for now has just been some fun after hours. But thank you, Tane, for joining us today. Super interesting conversation. And thank you to our listeners for joining us. Please subscribe to the channel for weekly episodes and to hear more from the people building New Zealand's AI future. Until next time, thanks for tuning in to the AI Corner.